Hey there, it's Stephen Hughes, your Hershey Real Estate Pro broker, investor, agent, whatever title I guess I'm going by today. Just here with another one-on-one interview. Just like I always say, instead of me trying to introduce today's guest, I would rather today's guests interview themselves. So, Wendy, if you want to go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
Just as an introduction, my name is Wendy Farr, and I am the development manager for Northern Utah. For those of you who know this area very well, it's pretty much everything north of Salt Lake to the border. And I cover two of our walks to end Alzheimer's. And then we have several other development managers that cover the rest of our state, which are seven walks that we cover, as well as the rest of our staff that also do development, as well as other really necessary and important programming necessities for those that we serve. And that format's pretty much the same from chapter to chapter. So there are some states that have more than one chapter, and the role that we serve and what it is that we're doing changes slightly, but for the most part, that's going to be consistent across each chapter. One of the questions that Stephen asked me to cover was just like, why do I do this? Like, why is there such a thing as the Alzheimer's Association? And I'll tell you the why is because many years ago, probably and actually it was like 1997. We had this dear, lovely, wonderful neighbor who we sort of adopted as our own little grandfather, and discovered that he was struggling with signs of dementia and his daughter was struggling. And even though I didn't know much about it then, he changed the course of my life and the life of my family and my husband and our career, because we ended up diverting into elder care services several years later. And now 20 years later, I find I get to do this and have an impact on so many more families and the struggle that they may have. Why we do this as far as an organization is because, as with every disease, there is so many things that are myths and misunderstandings and opportunities where people kind of go off on the wrong path because they just don't know what it is or how's the best way to approach it. So why we do this is the association is to give accurate, appropriate information and guidance and advice on how families can manage this journey that they're on.
What makes Alzheimer's and dementia such a unique disease that we would need to bring attention to it compared to, other diseases?
I used to be a teacher, and so I loved the opportunity to educate. So I had been teaching the classes about Alzheimer's, about dementia for about 17 years, even before I became a staff member. And what is I find interesting is that the information and the research that we had then back in 2000, I'm going to say 6, compared to what we have now, quite frankly, is very different. Back then, we used to say that people didn't die from this disease. They would die from complications, but we didn't say this was the cause. That is no longer the case. It used to be that I would say in my classes that of all the types of dementia, about still 80%, 75, 80% were attributed to Alzheimer's. Now we know that there's about 100 different diagnoses that have dementia as part of it. And maybe Alzheimer's is 60%. So that's how we're learning more about the effect and the affect that it has on those who have the diagnosis, and the varying stages before we get to what might actually be considered Alzheimer's as well.
I do remember years ago not knowing that like Alzheimer's and dementia cause death. And just in our family, my wife's grandmother has Alzheimer's. Hers is actually a very advanced case. And it's funny, we've seen that change literally in the past year where she doesn't recognize almost anybody other than a handful of people. And personally, I've been trying to learn about it because I'm seeing it firsthand at family events. There's a lot of people that would know there's various kinds of cancers. And most people are always like, whenever you mention a type of cancer, it's a general thing where people are like, well, how deadly is that? Or what's the survivability? Like people say those things about cancer. People don't say that sort of thing about dementia or Alzheimer's. I don't
No, they don't.
they don't associate death with it. They just associate just like maybe sadness or like, oh, that's just a shame. you know?
30 years ago, nobody said, I mean, they would say the C word because nobody wanted to say cancer. And I think we're getting into that world now where the word dementia is not quite so frightening. But what's really terrifying, quite frankly, is there is more incidence of dementia than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. But it is still something that people don't like to talk about. And I think it's just awareness. I think that's one of the most valuable things that any disease organization, whether it's American Cancer Society or anything about the Parkinson's or anything of those other diseases, that they have a place that is safe and accurate, and that there's authenticity with what they're going to be getting from that organization.
I know you raise funds to help go towards research for treatment. I know people talk about a cure, things like that. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the research the Alzheimer's Association does.
Yeah. And
Um,
I'm actually pulling up one of our newest and greatest. Whenever you have an organization that does a lot of fundraising, there's always a question about, well, how much of your funds go to this or that, and like, is that really a good place to send your funds because it's going to be treated well and be accountable and have the transparency so that you know that. I would like to personally guarantee that my years of involvement would not have been such if I didn't have the comfort level of that. Most of our programs are done with volunteers. So those who have been through it and then have in turn wanted to turn around and give back to those who are currently going through it as well. So we have a very high percentage. It's over 80% as far as the per dollar and the impact that an individual will have who sends it. I'm grateful that there's a little bit that goes to administration because as an employee, I am so proud of how well they treat us as staff. We have good health benefits. It's a good working environment. And I know that I've had places I've known in the past, like nonprofits, that looked like they had a high percentage of dollar to fundraising, but didn't necessarily do very well taking care of their own staff. So I am very proud of how well they take care of us. But there is a big portion of what we fundraise that does go to the national level for a variety of things. One of the things I really want to hit hard for anyone who is and will be listening to this in the future, Stephen, is our 800 helpline number, because I'm not going to answer my phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. However, we have that available for families. And so that 800 number is available whenever anybody may need help. And so it's 800-272-3900. Any time of day, 24/7, there is someone who's going to answer that call. It could be as simple as, hey, when is the next support group meeting that happens to be in Salt Lake City on whatever day it is? They can get those kinds of answers. However, if it's a crisis situation, they can also be directed to one of our master level social workers who are going to help process that crisis. And so they can have that level of help as well. A lot of our fundraising supports that 24/7 available staff. But as you alluded to, the research is so vital because we have to know what's going on. We have to understand not just the prevalence, but where, weirdly enough, there's a lot of differences around the world between where people live. Is in Colorado, there's a very high incident rate of multiple sclerosis, for example, over other states. Why is that? That seems bizarre. Like, what is it about that? Same thing with dementia. What is it about dementia, whether it's where you live, your family genetics, your healthy habits, whatever it might be? What is it that makes it unique and different? And that's where the research comes in. And I am very proud of the fact that and excited that we're finally in an era of treatment. So let's go back to the comparison you made about cancer. 30, 40 years ago, if you had cancer, there really wasn't anything to be done. If they couldn't cut it out, there really just wasn't much to be done. And we are definitely behind research wise as far as, with cancer in comparison, but we are making headway, and the field has available treatment. We do support a lot of the clinical trials, whether it is a clinical trial for a new medication or whether it's healthy habits or other lifestyle things. We have over 450 current studies that we are helping to fund in one way or another. And it goes across the board in a variety of different ways that we're trying to study not just why it happens, how we can prevent it, but also how we can manage it on a daily basis for families as well. A lot of the funds that we use for research cover a lot of those bases. I had a grandfather that was special. You have somebody in your family right now. Let's say she were to pass away and she has a say an estate that maybe she wants to do a bequest and she wants to give a specific amount of money after she's passed away. In that regard, people can very specifically say, we want this to be just for research, or we want this just to be for programs, or whatever that might be. The local level supports me and the other staff that we have that provides programming as well as this care and support and all of that on a local level. But the promising new treatments that we have are based on obviously years and years of research and a variety of different things. It's interesting. There's one aducanumab, I think I said that right. And it was before the most recent one is called Leqembi. And there's much more success under Leqembi than there was on the aducanumab. What I think is interesting is the company who was making the other one willingly chose to pull out and stop moving forward with it because it wasn't showing as good of results as Leqembi was. And I love that. That's like, yeah, let's stop throwing money at something that isn't showing as good results. Let's, pivot and go a different direction. I think that's very exciting that and now those funds are being redirected towards the one that has shown progress. The difficult part with that right now is that Leqembi in particular, for those that are having mild cognitive impairment at very early stages. If it's caught early enough, it's actually showing some remarkable improvement on the longevity of their of how it's impacting their lives. Oh, like 26, 27% increase in the quality of their life. That's huge. That's an amazing opportunity. However, it has to be caught very early. Sadly, most people still, and you kind of said this earlier, we still don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring up the idea that maybe I'm having some cognitive issues. And so part of our awareness campaign for what the future is going to hold for possible treatments is we have to be talking about it. We have to acknowledge that it's okay to say that maybe um, uh, I'm not managing things as well as I used to at a level that's actually impacting their lives. So best way to explain that, I know you and I talked about this the last time we had chatted, was there's definitely like those moments where I am overwhelmed, I'm busy, I have too much on my plate, I'm stressed. I am not going to be at my best cognitively, right? You and I have both talked about how that has happened to us. That's not cognitive impairment. That's life and time management, maybe impairment, but that's just normal aging. And that's not something that we need to be plaguing ourselves with and concern on a daily basis. However, there is not normal aging. And the difference between that would be forgetting a doctor's appointment. And I spaced it off, or I wrote it down on the wrong day, or whatever it happened, and I missed that appointment because of that. Pretty typical. However, if I misplaced my shoe and I find it in the refrigerator, that's different. Obviously, the shoe doesn't usually have anything to do with the refrigerator, right? Yeah. So we can talk about what are the warning signs, but also what are the positive things? Like what can we be doing that research has proven that we can be doing to have a positive impact on our own personal risk, diet and nutrition and things like that, and not smoking. We know that that has an impact in a negative way. But just recently, here at the beginning of the year, we actually developed a new class, the 10 healthy habits that improve our risk. And one of those is absolutely, please do not smoke. It's not just an impact on your lungs. There's a variety of other negative impacts on your body that will have for the rest of your life as well. The other things that came up was not just healthy eating, but specifically weight management. So whatever that might be for each individual, I personally love sugar. I am a big sugarholic, and I know I need to have that under control. I need to know and manage that for myself the way that I need to. So weight management, very specific as opposed to, hey, just have good eating habits, very specific. Another one of those 10 was diabetes control and high blood pressure, making sure that you are keeping that high blood pressure controlled and monitored on a regular basis. And so the top 10 risks, these are the things that we can do to prevent.
I think, it's really interesting how so many of these things medically overlap in terms of just what we can do. And
Yes.
maybe one day, far into the future, we'll find out just again how much of the stuff is related. And we're not there yet. I think just to kind of wrap up our time together, because you gave us a lot that and I know a lot of this will also go back to the website, even for the chapter website. Tell us when 2024's walk is for Weber Davis, and again, just give us a highlight of like what the walk is about, why the Alzheimer's Association does the walk, and then of course tell us how to contact you best for the end of our video.
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that because our walks truly is about trying to end this disease. And as we gather together, whether it is in support as a family team, we want our walks to be a place of love and support, to uplift. And it's not discouraging. In fact, it's quite lovely to be with others who have had an impact and feel like you're not alone. And to be able to get good information, resources, have people like yourself and all of our other professionals that we work with, they're present. That's what the walks are about. Yes, we walk. It's not quite 3 miles. Most of our walks have a shorter route as well. So we will have bus loads of some of our assisted livings that will come and bring their clients, and the residents will do a little circle around the park with their wheelchairs. It's less about the distance, less about whether or not you're actually able to do it yourself, and far more about the gathering and the supporting and the hope that we are moving forward towards a cure where we can prevent, know what it is that's having the impact, and that we can improve the quality of life. Even if somebody has it, we want to see that their life has a quality to it and provide the available resources so that families can make those decisions for themselves and what makes sense for them. So the walks that I oversee in Northern Utah are Cache Valley, there in Logan, as well as the Weber Davis Walk, which covers from like Centerville and Bountiful all the way up to Kaysville and Layton area, as well as in Ogden itself. We have 7 across the state though, and almost all of them take place during the month of September and then down into October. So this year, the Cache Valley Walk is September 7th. And so that's one of the first ones that we have. And since they have usually the colder weather, we wanted to get them in as soon as possible. So we will start then. And as far as other chapters and other locations of walks and so forth, all of that would be available on our website, which is alz.org. You can click on anything that says Walk to End Alzheimer's. It will show you a map. You can click on that state and it will give you the options as to which date and time would be available for whatever's the most convenient. They can also donate to any team member. They can do that as a team captain. They're given all kinds of resources and opportunities to use the available social media outlets as well to not just ask for donations, but to really spread the awareness. This is not a disease where we want to get into that bad habit like we, used to be with cancer. We don't talk about the C word. Well, this is the D word. And, we don't want people to be afraid of talking about dementia. So that is the umbrella term. It's all dementia. And then underneath that umbrella would be the various types: Alzheimer's, Lewy body, vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, of all of those other reasons, Parkinson's induced dementia. There are, again, now about 100 different reasons. All of it falls under dementia. And so if I were to meet you for the first time, Stephen, and you mentioned that you had a family member struggling, I would say, oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that your grandmother has dementia. What type of dementia is it? I know that sometimes we, as humans, don't want to bring up something that we are afraid might be sensitive because we're not quite sure what the terminology is. So, regardless of whether or not you know what type of dementia a family member or a coworker or someone in your faith community might have, the correct term is dementia. And if they choose to offer the additional type, that's okay. But you just know that that is the word, is dementia. And we would love to help them down their journey, whether it's a coworker who just is interested to help support that their fellow employee, or if it is a boss who doesn't know how to support family members. One of my most favorite things to do in the whole world is a family consultation, which is getting people on Zoom and doing a class and getting all those family members involved wherever they may be to answer questions and come together as a family. And that's those pebbles. That's what we try to sweep away.
I think that's really great. I like the way you phrased the question about dementia. I don't even think I knew that the umbrella term was dementia. I didn't even know that.
Oh, good. Well, I'm hey, you learned something too.
Well, tell us what's the best way to contact you, Wendy?
Yeah. So the best way to contact me would be probably through email. So first name is Wendy. My middle initial is L. And so my email is WL Farr, Farr, and my name is there on the screen at alz.org. It's quite simple. They can contact me that way. They can also go to the alz.org website, look at any state as to find your local chapter. You can find the programs and the staff that do the support groups, any of that. But the safest and easiest way, probably, to get access to information would be the 800 number. And that's 800 272 3900.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for being here, Wendy.
Thank
And
you.
everyone will of course still put Wendy's information below. That 800 number will be in the description box, or at the very least, it'll be in the transcript that YouTube always does for us, as well as the video editor. So you'll have all that as well. We'll see you again, Wendy. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.